Slovenia is challenged more. In part, it's your success, upgrading the skills of young people, but it also leaves behind a legacy that is not yet being addressed. And how do we address this? Well, the answer is continuing education and training. But when you look at these data, you can actually see that those people who are highly skilled, they go on to training in Slovenia. Does offer a lot of really high quality training for workers, but it's the highly skilled who take advantage of it. And those who need it most, the most poorly skilled, get the least out of it. It's a picture that we see across the industrialized world. Slovenia is not alone in this, but here we a particular challenge is something I think to watch out for. So what do we suggest is to make sure that upper secondary students develop really, really good skills, that higher education becomes more responsive to social needs, develops better eyes and ears to how the world is changing and how higher education can contribute to this. It's about setting the right incentives that motivate adults to actually work on their skills and also give people more scope to decide how they learn, where they learn, when they learn, making lifelong, life-wide learning a reality for all. That brings me to the second dimension. You know, you can have great talent in Slovenia, but if it's not activated, being deployed effectively, it's not going to be useful for individuals, it's not going to be useful for societies. And you can actually see among the older generation in particularly, very few ones in paid employment, much less so than across countries. So there's a lot of untapped expertise and that is not yet deployed. We also see that there is a growing number of young people who are not in education and training, but also not in employment, so who are falling off the radar screen of public policy. And this share is not excessively high. It compares, to the OECD average, but it's been growing when you compare 2007 and 2015. So that's something again to watch out, making sure that young people are not left out of, the legacy that comes from the financial crisis that has just left few posts. There is a risk that, we are losing young people, because if you do not use your skills, you're likely to lose them. That's, I think, much of the reality that we have to worry about. Why is employment, why is activation limited? Part of it is very high employment costs. I think Slovenia has done a lot to reduce the tax burden recently, but when you think about the employer, social contribution is still very, very high by international comparisons. And that means the tax wedge, what employers pay and what people actually get, is quite high in Slovenia, and that obviously can be a drag on activating talent and skills. It's also important to retain and attract talent from Slovenia and abroad. This picture may be somehow familiar to you. You can see how, particularly among highly skilled people, tertiary educated people, there has been a rising trend for people to leave the country. Certainly a lot more people leaving than coming. So building an economy that is more open to specialized talent, that is also more open to foreign expertise, will be quite important to ensure that Slovenia remains competitive in the areas where value is being most created in the high-skilled sectors. We also see, when you look at sort of the very high kind of highly paid people, highly skilled people, you see on this chart that they have actually relatively low earnings potential. These are the net earnings of a person earning 167% of the average wage, and you can see that is a quite small share. And this is not something to be ignored, because often those are the kind of game changers and innovators in the system on which economic development really relies. So becoming more attractive for excellence is at the other end of the spectrum something really important. So it's about providing better incentives for people to work, particularly older generations, and also employers to hire. That's where the tax issue comes in, to find ways to re-engage young people, that they ensure that they are actually reached and better supported. A tax system that doesn't deter very highly skilled workers from working in Slovenia, and also making sort of the system more open to international students. Challenge 5. This is important too. Making most use of people's skills at the workplace. Here's something that looks really quite, counterintuitive. Normally, larger firms are better in using people's skills. So they have bigger HR capacities, they have more places where they can slot people, they have a lot more flexibility to make really good use out of the skills of people. And that's what we see in the gray line, not when we look at the OECD average. But when I look at Slovenia, it looks sort of the other way around. Actually, larger companies are worse than smaller ones in actually really deploying the talent of people effectively. So there is a lot of scope in Slovenia to actually make good schools, and it has to do to some extent with high performance work practices, advanced management techniques, job rotation, the kind of things that actually we attribute to interesting, engaging, and high quality workplaces. And you can clearly see if you're in Denmark, Finland, Sweden, but also Flanders and Belgium and so on, those countries are doing a lot better in having a high share of their jobs that are, the kind of knowledge worker jobs that we really look for as high quality management and workplace practices. Using skills for entrepreneurship and innovation. This is actually quite interesting. When you look at this, you see Slovenia positioned really well. Very few countries have a higher share of workers with R&D who are working in the R&D sector. Basically, in terms of employment, Slovenia is really positioned very well. But when you look at the second chart, the flip side of this, you can actually see when it comes to the publication in journals, producing academic ideas, Slovenia does really, really well. When it comes to filing patents, that's basically bringing ideas into practice, bringing ideas towards innovation, that's just so-so. And when it comes to international co-invention, collaborating, international to develop new products, new services, Slovenia is doing not so well. So there's a clear gap between the potential that Slovenia has, lots of great people working in R&D, and what it does with this in terms of translating good ideas into innovation and new services and products. So that's something that is clearly one of the challenges that we have seen as well. So in sum, it's about diffusing high-performance work practices throughout the industries, and particularly in large enterprises. It's about responding to the kind of factors affecting skill use that I mentioned. It's about building a better trajectory from ideas to innovation, and also fostering skills and positive attitudes towards entrepreneurship. And that's where sort of it circles back to education. That brings me to the last part. This is putting it all together in a coherent skill system, building the kind of governance structures that have been very important. This is about enabling better decisions through improved skills information. If you think about Slovenia, how do you actually know what skills are needed as a kind of young person or as a company? Most of the information that we found is just derived from employers. It's kind of very specific, rather short term. It's very hard actually to look at longer term projections. Of course, nobody can predict the future, but we need to do our best every day to find out, not maybe where jobs are involved, but at least where the kind of tasks are involved in the people and countries competitive. And the report identifies a whole range of countries that have invested a lot in making sort of skill projections more durable, more towards the longer term, less reliant on employer service, and also sort of more balanced things. The last point is about financing and taxing skills. That's always hard, Skills and taxes are sort of intrinsically linked. Basically, you get no taxes if you have no skills. It's the skilled people that earn the money that pay the taxes. But you can also get no education without investing the taxes. And this is about societies investing in the future. And frankly, Slovenia is not investing a large share of its income in the future and skills compared with other countries. And we've also seen that share declining. But this is not just a question for government, it's also a question for analytics. When I look at the wage returns, you can see that if you get a good education in Slovenia, you get a lot out of it. Basically, there is no country among the ones for which we have data where you break You have very, very few costs as an individual to obtain a tertiary qualification, a university qualification, and large benefits. So there's a clear kind of incentive for people to invest in skills. But what about society? What about taxpayers? How to share the costs and benefits of education more equitably? When you look at the kind of contribution that students in Slovenia make towards their own skills, towards their education, it's really very low. And finding sort of a good balance, who pays, who benefits from different educational investments, sharing the costs and benefits equitably, is a question for the future. Yeah, if you can, if you are Norway, you have lots of oil, you have to worry about those kind of questions. But if you don't, this is a zero-sum game. It's very important choices societies need to make. And I think there are things to think about. It's about evaluating government performance. It's about building capacity and incentives also for interministerial collaboration. I must say we have been deeply impressed by all the commitment that we got from the different government departments and stakeholders. If I look beyond the skilled sector, some of our surveys show that there's more that can be done. It's also about local engagement, getting people on the ground on board, getting genuine ownership among the people who use skills. It's about providing better and more tailored information on the evolution of skill demand. It's about boosting financial support for vocational education of those who actually need that most, need to have good opportunities, and obviously boosting mechanisms to finance adult learning. That's where we are. The next step ahead is to actually move into